Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Garlick from Henpicked Menopause in the Workplace, and author of the book Menopause, the Change for the Better. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be running this session on menopause, movement and exercise, something very close to my heart and I think is absolutely paramount for good mental health as well as good body health. And we have the wonderful Sally Bolton with us, who's from Eat, Train and Love. I hope I've got that right, Sally. And also is a Henpicked Menopause Network trainer and runs our masterclasses, which are so powerful, to talk us through menopause, movement and exercise. That's actually quite a mouthful, isn't it? And of course, we have got the wonderful Sally Leach answering any questions, so do keep those coming and we'll get to them at the end. But I just wanted to ask you, first of all, welcome, Sally.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I know, sorry, we're a little bit out of step this morning because we're so busy talking about the exercise that we did before we came on this session today. So the passion is clear. But one question I had of you, and I didn't ask you earlier, Sally, is I know that you're passionate about movement and exercise. How did you get into this?
Do you know, I think it's something that my parents passed down to me because ever since I was a little girl, I remember doing sports, at primary school and being in the relay races and doing netball and rounders. So it's something that's definitely, I think was just, I was born with it. And then at every level of education, I would always be involved in all the team sports, and then I would do extra stuff. So I'd do a tennis, or I'd do just everything, anything that I could. Yeah. And there was a little bit of a gap, I think, during college years. And then once I was at uni, I kind of started to get back into it. And that's when my love for the gym started as well. So it's always been there, definitely.
It's always been there. And that won't be said of all of us. I hope you
So
appreciate that. So I do hope that we can talk about those of us that might be coming to movement and exercise later, or maybe even for the first time. And how do we start with all of that? But can you tell me, what do you see as an expert of the benefits of movement and exercise?
I mean, gosh, there's so many really. And one thing that I'll say before I start is what I love about exercise is it's so accessible. I think for the large majority of people, unless you have like a disability, unless you have a condition, which means you can, it's accessible for everybody, which is great. So one of the big things that I've experienced over the years, and I know it's a known symptom for menopause as well, it is weight gain. So regular, consistent exercise and movement can be really, really good to help maintain a healthy weight. So when we do exercise and movement, it actually helps to rev up our metabolism, which basically means we burn more calories efficiently, which is great for losing weight, but also maintaining weight as well. So that's probably the first one because it's such a common symptom that we hear about, through menopause. Then there's the
We
other,
hate, Sally, the one we hate.
the one we hate. Yeah. And I think I read somewhere that it's like 70% of women actually talk about weight gain. So I know it's a really, really big deal. And then the other one is, menopause hits us around midlife, doesn't it, generally, for a large majority of people. And we start to go into this kind of aging process where our function starts to decline. So exercise can really help combat that. So we have something called sarcopenia, which is basically where your muscles start to waste away, they lose their strength and they lose their function. And then obviously something like osteoporosis, which is again related to the weakening of the bones. So exercise and movement can really help to slow this whole process down quite considerably. So that's another really great one for women that are going through menopause. Things like general mental well-being as well is a huge one because of course we can't talk about menopause without talking about mental health and well-being. And exercise is, but there's so much evidence and research out there which shows that exercise is actually proof that it can really help with things like anxiety, depression, getting a good night's sleep, because we all know that again that could be one of the really big symptoms and big challenges as we go through menopause. So that's another great one. And we've just been talking about it. And it's just being present. I often say that exercise for me is my form of meditation. So when you're in the moment and you're doing that exercise, so whether you're doing your body combat session, or you're in the gym with your trainer, or you're doing a Zumba class, or whatever it is you're doing, you're in the moment. So you're not thinking about all the other stresses and worries of the day. So, I mean, that's a huge one, isn't it? You know?
It is, but sometimes, you know, we were talking earlier because, like last night, I was like, "Oh, you're just so tired. I don't want to go." Oh, and I got my daughter, who's my gym buddy, and she kind of said, "Well, you know, you're doing it," and I was like, "Oh, I really can't. I'll just go and do something on the treadmill. Leave me alone. You know, I don't want to go to body pump." And she's like, "Absolutely no," and she was absolutely right, because when I was in there, I got into it. It actually gave me a burst of energy coming out of it, but I was focused entirely on, am I squeezing my glutes when I do that? Am I squeezing my core? And there was so much going on as I was following the class that I was absolutely in the moment. And when I was walking out, I actually felt more energized. So I didn't actually tell Rebecca that, because
No.
I don't want her using it next time when she says, you know, you said you couldn't do it last week and you did.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, no. And a lot of people always say, you know, there's a real battle in your head, isn't there, sometimes when you know it's going to be good for you, but there's all those things that tell you not to go because you're tired, or you've had a long day, or it's too far away, or whatever the reasons are. But no one ever regrets doing it. And it's always really important to remember that. And you've just mentioned the fact that you've got your daughter there, having that buddy there as well to have that extra accountability is gold for a lot of people.
Absolutely, but appreciating, because the gym's great for those of us who love it. I would say can't say I absolutely love it. You know, I sometimes have to remind myself that it's good for me. But for those, and you said right at the beginning, it's accessible.
Mm.
Not everybody wants to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Not everybody, you know, because the subs are a little bit expensive sometimes, aren't they? You know, you're sort of looking at your pennies and you think, actually, can I get rid of that one?
Yeah.
So if you're not a gym person, or you don't want to go to the gym, or you're just starting out, what would be your tips?
Do you know, I say this hand on heart, genuinely, the biggest number one exercise prescription for me is walking. And again, for the biggest reason that it is so accessible. But again, unless you have a disability and you can't do it, absolutely everyone can get out and do a walk. Now, for you beginners, you know, and you know, I talk about it's the stories in your head that hold you back. So it's make it really small to start off with. So just go with something like, I'm just going to do 5 minutes. I'm going to find a time in the day which is convenient to me, because what we don't want to do is start stressing ourselves out even more and adding more overwhelm, because we're then worried about, when am I going to do the exercise? How long is it going to be? So find a time in the day which is great for you, and just give yourself a little mini goal of, I'm going to do 5 minutes. And what happens is you then start to create that new neural pathway that says, oh, actually, that was okay. I didn't mind that. I could probably do more. So then what happens is the next time you do it, you say to yourself, well, I can do another more. So a bit more. So instead of doing 5 minutes, you might do 10 minutes. And then this is how it starts to breed that motivation. So you have that reference point. So for me, walking has got huge, powerful benefits for so many reasons. It's accessible, it's easy to do. You can do it on your own if you need that much needed time on your own, or you can do it with a friend. If you've got a dog, you can do it in a kind of social setting. And you know, there's this idea that forest bathing, which comes from a Japanese term, it's all about taking in nature and taking all the energies. So I just love that. It's great physically, it's weight bearing. And also it's really good again for mental health, you know, just being outside in the open, especially now the weather's slightly better.
Yeah.
People are appreciating, aren't they, like the power of just being outside and being in nature. So that would be my number one for anybody, you know, whether they're new to exercise or long term, because it's something that I do every day. I have 2 dogs, so I take them out every day, and I certainly notice the benefit of being outside, definitely.
Yeah, or even somebody's just put walking meetings at work, or starting and joining a park run.
Exactly.
You know, you don't always have to run those, do you? Some people could actually walk them, but it's, you
Yeah.
know, you've got people around you. But then there's also those people who'll say, do you know what? You've just said putting on weight. I don't want to put on gym clothes and go to a gym.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It just people, when you start talking about exercise, I think this idea that you have to go to a gym. And I always say, absolutely not. You know, we went through COVID for 2 years, didn't we? Where all the gyms were shut and there was so much stuff being done online. So that just goes to show that you can do something at home, and as simple as a body weight exercise circuit to get you started if you really need to exercise. And even those are the more advanced, you know, if you really don't want to go to a gym for whatever reason that is, then you can easily do things at home. So that there are barriers to exercise, but there's definitely something that you can easily do at home to start off with. And then from that, you might gain a little bit more confidence. And you might then decide, I'm going to try out a class, or, there's so many things that you can do nowadays. But definitely, if it's something that's holding you back, and just start again, just little bite-sized things at home, a great idea.
Thank you. And so thinking about that or following that one through, what is the best exercise I can do? Because, you know, there's cardio, there's resistance, which one is the best one?
So the simple answer is really find one that you are going to love to do, that you know that you're going to do consistently and also for long term. So I know that's a little bit of a it's a bit of a cop out, that, but it's true. It's finding something that you're going to love to do. But let's just talk optimum for a minute, because there is optimum. So we've already spoken about one. Walking has got so many health benefits for it. So absolutely, get your steps in every day, as much as possible. And again, it's different for everybody. Try not to compare yourself to someone else, because we're all starting at different levels, and that's really important. But if we're going to talk optimum, then absolutely my background's strength and conditioning, and strength training, often described as resistance training as well, has got so many health benefits. It helps to maintain and build our muscle mass, which we know is so important. So by the age of 30, we lose muscle mass 3 to 8% per decade. And then when we hit 60, it goes up to 8 to 10%.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So strength training is the only way that you're going to help prevent that from happening. We talked about it before. It helps you to burn calories more efficiently. It helps with sleep. So that would be optimum for me, is walking and strength training. And then of course, add into the mix restorative exercise as well, because it isn't just about, the cardiovascular, the high intensity, and the muscle building. It's also about, calming the nervous system and being grounded, and getting into those activities which help you, kind of help your mobility, help with your flexibility, and just keep you grounded. So it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but those are kind of like the optimum. And then it's putting them all together in a package, which really kind of suits you and suits your lifestyle. Yeah.
I've never heard of the restorative. We all know what cardio is, and that's when you get a bit, out of breath and you start to
Yeah.
sweat.
Yeah.
The one for building your muscles or keeping your muscles in tone, absolutely, and that does affect your metabolism as well, doesn't it? And it's a sort of downward spiral if you're not careful. I've never heard of restorative.
Yeah, and it's really powerful as well. And I think, look, if you were going to look at an ideal picture of a week and your exercise, it would be a combination of everything, because cardiovascular is good for our heart, strength training good for our muscles and our bones. And then we've got restorative, which is great for that relaxation, that grounding. And again, we know that a lot of women struggle with anxiety, depression, stress. And restorative can really, really help with those symptoms. So, think about things like yoga, obviously, is a classic one. Tai Chi, I've got clients that do Tai Chi, there's Pilates, there's just really gentle walking, which would be classed as restorative. You've got power walking, but you've got also gentle walking. And then another form of exercise would be meditation, of course,
Oh,
which is considered under the restorative bracket. which we know, again, there's a lot of research that's been done around meditation and how important it is for your mental health. So yeah.
So that's interesting. So you've given me some of the mix
Yeah.
there of what to put in on my menu. How often should I be doing it? Because sometimes, like my husband will say, you shouldn't be doing body pump 2 nights running, and it's like, should I not?
Do you know what? Again, it's really personal, and it also depends on your background and where you've come from. So if you're a new person to exercise, then obviously just start slow and steady. Don't overdo it. Um, but then if you're a more advanced exerciser, you know, you could probably handle a little bit more. But and again, in an ideal world, it's just like as much as you can do comfortably without it having an adverse effect on your body and your health. So it's finding out what works best for you. If you're going to ask me what's optimum, I always say to clients 3 times a week to do weight bearing activities, so strength based activities. Add in a little trickle of cardio. I mean, again, ideally, if you can get out and walk every day, that would be optimum, but just as often as you can, which again fits into your lifestyle and not someone else's. And then the restorative, um, you know, if you can get 1 session in a week, that's better than nothing, isn't it? And I appreciate it's finding the time to do all of this. So again, it comes down to, you know, what you can fit in comfortably. But I think if someone was going to ask me which one to prioritize, I would probably say strength training, because I know it's got huge benefits, and plus walking. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess depending where you are, because if you've got to watch your knees, you got to watch your aches and pains and those sorts of things, and for some people that might, that there are some barriers for some people.
There are some barriers, and I always say that, but there is I think there's some myths around strength training that it's going to cause you more problems. Well, I think that the thing to remember there is always go and speak to an expert about it, find out, who you can speak to locally, who will assess you. Because actually, I've worked with clients over the years that have got fibromyalgia, they've got various injuries, and actually the training becomes more beneficial than not. So we can work around the injuries, but and kind of help to bring you that strength up. So there are some barriers around that, but I do appreciate there are some people that just can't do it for whatever reason. But there's generally always something that you can find to do. It's just working on your level, definitely.
Yeah, it is. And I know my husband's had a few operations on his knee, and he says when he doesn't exercise, the stiffer than when he does. So he thinks of exercise as keeping it lubricated, keeping things flexible, as you say.
Yeah.
That he says it'd be so easy to stop this because it does hurt a little bit sometimes, but it's actually better afterwards.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you do have an injury, we've mentioned it already, sarcopenia. If you're not exercising it regularly, that muscle will start to waste. So if you have an injury, it's important to get checked out by a fully qualified physio, get some rehab exercises, and start working on doing some kind of low key strength work to kind of protect that area and then build up the strength. Because if you don't, it's going to lose its strength and its ability to function properly. So that's kind of like the payoff there, really.
It is, and also I guess tracking yourself. So closing my rings every day is it's a game, it's a fascination, but it's
Yeah.
also my way of checking that I'm still doing stuff.
Yeah, these are great. They're when they came out, I mean, there's all sorts of different ones you can get nowadays, aren't there? But I think it's just that little reminder there, isn't it? Just to check in and, oh, I've only done X amount today. So it can give you that little bit of a nudge. The thing is not to get too obsessed with these, and just always be whatever you do in a day, just because we can be really hard on ourselves, can't we? And if we've not done 10,000 steps, then we're not good enough. And I just think, you know what? As long as you've moved in the day, then that's better than nothing. Some days you'll do more, some days you'll do less, and that's okay.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think I can see there's a lot of questions happening, so I'll hand over to Sally. Sally, it looks like there's a lot of comments.
There are a huge amount. And just again, we always love these sessions because people are so generous with sharing what's working for them, encouraging others of what they can do. So it's just really, really appreciated. And some really great tips people have said around joining running groups, starting walking groups, park runs, making accessible them, reformer Pilates, all sorts of things that people have talked about. But yes, we have lots of questions. So I know you've talked around the types of exercise, but someone's just saying, how important is adding cardio in? So is cardio considered to be good or bad during this perimenopause into menopause phase?
Yeah, it can be extremely beneficial, but when we talk about cardio, I think there's different forms. When you say cardio, you've got your high intensity levels of cardio, and then you've got your more moderate pace. I would say, as a general rule, for a majority of women going through perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, you want to be looking at the more moderate pace stuff. It can really help with heart health. It can help reduce a buildup of abdominal and visceral fat, which is the fat that builds up around the organs, which can obviously have an impact on heart disease. The high intensity, I've found that myself personally. I was still doing CrossFit kind of just during the first part of my perimenopause, and I just realized I was getting absolutely shot after I'd done it, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And it's not that beneficial for women at this stage of life. I'm not saying never do it if that's your bag and you enjoy doing it, but just be mindful that that's not going to probably be optimum for you. So I would go for the more moderate level. And I'll keep repeating myself, I'm really boring, but walking is such a good cardiovascular exercise. I think people underestimate the benefits of it. So you don't necessarily have to run at all.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that kind of leads into another question. Someone saying about, and it wasn't really a question, just a note that they've had to have some kind of acceptance that they can't necessarily exercise in exactly the same way they did in their maybe 20s or 30s. And there is, we have to kind of come to terms with the fact that our bodies are changing. And I think that can sometimes be quite hard, and just actually then think about finding what you enjoy now. So just kind of talking through that a little bit.
That's so true. I mean, I'm sure Deborah would have a story herself about this, but I know I do. And as a strength and conditioning coach that's been involved in exercise for years, I myself had to come to terms with the fact that I can't train the way I used to. My body doesn't want that. My body wants the rest days, and the rest days are really as important as the days where you work. So a brilliant comment, and it's so true. But it's not about being sad about that. It's just like, your body's changing, but you can still look and feel fantastic. It just means you don't have to do as much as you used to. But I appreciate that for some people it can be a bit of a loss. So yeah, I think Deborah, you probably might have had something similar.
Yes, indeed. I probably exercised a lot more. The restorative one, I didn't realise, but I do. I enjoy reformers. So sometimes it's finding something different that you enjoy, because I've been doing reformers now for nearly 18 months, which, if for anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's Pilates with ropes and all of that. And I'm absolutely fascinated with it. I thoroughly enjoy Saturday mornings, getting up early and going to reformers. And whilst it's restorative, it's flexing and moving things in a different way. So I'm hoping that it keeps flexibility up. That said, I can usually feel it. We call it the Bridgeford bum lift where I am, because every week it's like, ouch, I've moved something in my glutes that I obviously don't normally move. But it's been nice finding something different, actually, instead of the same old gym classes.
Agreed. Agreed.
Absolutely.
And reformer Pilates is hard work. It's really hard work.
Well, it depends which class, because they do different ones now. They do reformers HIIT, reformers flexibility, and reformers body. So, again, you get the different types of classes within a reformers studio. So like the reformers flexible one, actually the first time I did that, I didn't realize how lacking in flexibility. Do we seize up at this time of life? Because I've got a young 20-something looking like they're doing the splits, and I'm sort of desperately trying to get down into the same sort of position. But I've actually managed it more with practice now. So that flexibility is key, isn't it, as well? Because doesn't that seize up a little bit?
Absolutely. So flexibility and mobility are something that you see. Again, it's just a part of age, the aging process. And I believe that's to do with estrogen as well. But you know what? You can get it back. I've seen people in their 70s doing yoga, and they're way better than me. So it just goes to show that you can get it back and then keep it as well. And that's just as important as building the strength as well, and having that, you know, the exercise for heart health. So flexibility and mobility are going to be important. Posture as you get older, so important.
Brilliant. Fantastic. There's some questions around weight and weight loss, and in particular weight around the stomach, where people are saying they're not really seeing weight loss, but they know they're toning and getting stronger, or they're really struggling to remove kind of that kind of like midsection where they're kind of holding that weight. Just any kind of things around that in terms of what we should be measuring in terms of the progress that someone's making, whether it's weight or is it about shape and size and that kind of thing.
So there's this whole thing around scale weight and then body composition, which are two separate things. It's like you stand on the scale and you see a number, but actually if you were to look in the mirror and look at photographs of yourself, it's actually your body composition. So in terms of the middle section, so it's really, really common, isn't it? And I've heard it being referred to as menobelly, and I don't particularly like that, but it does describe what it is. And there is a theory around that because our main form of estrogen starts to decline, the body will look for another form of estrogen in the body, which is found in fat cells, and it's particularly around the abdominal region. So it starts to produce more of these fat cells, which means a lot of women get the weight around the middle section. Now, there are things that we can do. Patience with one of them, obviously, because it can take time, but cardiovascular exercise is really good for this. But the moderate pace, looking at your nutrition, really kind of focusing in on your sleep, which is really important as well, and really looking at your nutrition, looking at those hidden sugars that are in food can be really, really key. And there's lots of hidden sugars in foods nowadays, so it's being a little bit smart and a bit savvy about what you're eating as well. But it's a combination of things. There's no spot reducing exercises, by the way, before anybody asks. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share as well, obviously, well, if people go to the Henpicked Menopause Hub, there are lots of sessions we've done around nutrition and managing weight and things like that. And again, very, very similar advice that's coming through. I've just got a final question just to fit in, which kind of, again, combines a few questions together around kind of where do you start with weight training? What is a body weight circuit? And someone's asked whether boxing is considered to be resistance training. It's just that kind of resistance strength piece. What does that mean? And what do you mean by a body weight circuit?
Yeah, so resistance training, strength training is just basically having a force that you're kind of pushing against or pulling against. So obviously if you're a beginner and you're new to all this, then something as simple as a body weight squat would be a really, really good example, or a press up is another example. So those are the very, very simple yet still very effective. So don't undervalue them just because there's no other extra weight in there. You're pushing against your weight, and they're great to start off. I would always say though, if you are going to start, still check in with a professional, get a little program done for you, specifically for you, because they obviously have to take into consideration any medication that you take, any injuries that you might have. But you can do something simple where you have 4 or 5 exercises and you just keep repeating each one for an amount of reps, and you might do 4 or 5 circuits, and that might take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Stick some music on that you love, and it can be as simple as that to start off with. Obviously then if you want to build up, you can buy weights for home nowadays. There's so much you can get on the internet. We can get kettlebells, we can get bands, we can get dumbbells, and you can still add some things in at home. And then eventually, of course, if you want to upgrade, you can go into a gym, hire a personal trainer, go to a body pump class, which I know are really, really popular, and also very social as well. So there's lots of things that you can do. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it's really helpful. And loads of people have made recommendations, things they find they're working and things that they access, a lot of free resources that people have. So we'll make sure, again, we put those included in the write-up of this as well. But yeah, just thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you. And I'm busting some myths there as well, that actually we don't have to all go down to the gym to be in our best. We can start small and we can build up. and doing what's right for us individually sounds like it's key as well. But actually, just keep moving, exercising. It's good for our mental health.
Very much.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Sally Bolton and Sally Leach. And thank you very much to everyone who joined us today, or if you're just listening into the podcast, we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.